We're here doing a DARGchive interview on the Loughborough University campus, and the interview is with Dr. Rein Sikveland, who is a Senior Research Associate in the School of Social Sciences and Humanities at Loughborough University.
That's right.
Rein, thank you very much for accepting this interview.
Thank you.
So the first question that we usually ask our interviewees is how they got interested in conversation analysis.
Yeah, so that was back in 2007. I'd done my phonetics degree, so Bachelor and Master in Phonetics. I was working, so this was in Trondheim in Norway, and I was working on various research projects and teaching and doing various work there, but also interested in doing a PhD. And I got that opportunity through a Marie Curie research training network. So that was a large project across various sites in Europe. And the aim was to look into how fine phonetic details matter and how it can be used in developing speech technology. And the project that I was part of was based in York, so the linguistics group in York, Richard Ogden, John Local, people very interested in the phonetics of talk and interaction. So I got involved with them, and yeah, got to do my PhD there. And yeah, it was a very exciting time. It was great to go somewhere where there was such a big group of fellow weirdos, and I felt I got to expand my horizon using phonetics to study things like conversation, social actions, what people actually do. So yeah, it was very exciting.
So did you know about conversation analysis before you started your PhD, or?
No, I was getting curious about it as part of applying for this project. So, different project had different focus areas. One was using CA conversation analysis. And so I got into it. And it was around the time when Schegloff's sequence organization book came out. So that was my first book in CA, and I could probably get really into it. So yeah, no, I didn't really. There were people in my home institution in Trondheim who studied interactions and discourse, and so I'd heard CA mentioned, but I didn't know much about it.
You already mentioned your PhD at the University of York. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about what your PhD research was about.
So yeah, so when I started my PhD, I was interested in, I was a phonetician, so I wanted to make use of that in my PhD. And through looking over conversations, I got interested in cohesion, so how speakers build cohesions across units and sequences. So the kind of glue that binds these sequences together. And I was interested in how listeners influenced interaction, so what listeners did that actually affected interaction. And for many reasons, I was very interested from a linguistic point of view and also speech technology. And others who were writing about that at the time, so I was curious about that. But I applied the focus on prosody phonetics. And one of my chapters, the first one I worked on, was looking at response tokens, acknowledgement tokens, like and yeah, and how the prosodic forms of those really are used to project whether someone is staying on topic or whether there's a shift in topic. And I was also I was very into Gail Jefferson's work at that time, and how she looked at these response tokens, but also across very complex sequences, and I got interested in that. Basically, I could see from reading Schegloff and Jefferson, I could see, okay, this is really potential for me because they're not that sophisticated when it comes to phonetic analysis. There's lots of things I can do here. So part of my PhD was to show that and incorporate phonetic analysis, and it was I found somewhere which was in between, the very dedicated, explicit resources to change a topic, like so anyway, the kind of figurative expressions, which have been described before, and the more kind of vague, very stepwise, hard to pin down methods that Jefferson had described. This was something in between where producing in certain ways prosodically would project either, okay, proceeding on topic or making a shift. So that's kind of how it started, that kind of building how listeners and speakers work together to open up opportunities for further interaction. And through looking at face-to-face conversations, it was only natural that I got into how people use gaze and head nods and gestures in school. And I started thinking about that. Okay, that is also prosody. That is also about that glue, that cohesion, the things that are not explicit, but things we use and orient to, and time. Timing is very important. And through looking at gestures and head nods, gaze, I started working on intersubjectivity, how that comes about, how that is dealt with by interactants, and how, because head nods and gestures are things you can do parallel with speaking, and the timing of those are crucial for how people build understanding. So yeah, in a nutshell, my PhD was about prosodies, plural, of conversation, and how those are used systematically for people to understand each other. Yeah.
That's really interesting stuff. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about what it was like to be a PhD student at the University of York.
Yeah, no, it was really good, very exciting. It was a big group, lots of PhD students using similar methods. So we had data sessions, we had lots of collaborative work. It was also a new kind of building, research center, which I got part of. So we had our own space there. So yeah, the facilities were good. Very exciting to work with John Local and Richard Ogden, amongst others. Yeah, very exciting.
All right. So then you continue to be interested in prosody and phonetics after you finish your PhD. And I was wondering if you could reflect on what the role of phonetics, phonetic resources is in kind of social interaction.
Yeah, I think generally, so like I said, the shaping of coherence across the ecosystem terms is very powerful, because you can use phonetics to point forwards and backwards in interaction. You can use prosodic features to overdo something or not do anything in particular. Very important. So related to things to do with stance, what are you doing with an object, how are you treating it, and how are people hearing it, and how the relevance of shaping your turn in relation to previous turn, the prosodic relationships, how it's all, I mean, again, it's the kind of glue, how that works together. And there's so much we take for granted with phonetics, amongst other features, but phonetic features, we take for granted how they work and how we kind of use that as part of making sense. And it's our job to kind of identify what is it specifically that phonetic features do, and we identify more and more about that. But yeah, definitely more work to be done in the areas. Yeah.
So a couple of years now you've been part of the CARM team, the Conversation Analytic Role-play Method team, working with Lis Stokoe on several different projects, several different data sets, different settings. I was wondering if you could talk a bit about that.
Yeah, it's been great. So it's been 5 years now working with Lis in various projects under the CARM umbrella. And it's been such a great opportunity to basically get access to very exciting data sets. Some of them are so very different from data sets that have been studied before, using CA, for example, crisis negotiation project, which is also very different. So police negotiators dealing with people in crisis, sometimes threatening suicides, maybe sometimes not. People are very resistant to having a conversation at all. Find lots of things that are very different from other data sets we've seen. Even the classic suicide helpline, very different basis for those conversations, different challenges. So having access to those data sets and exploring and being able to also take that further. So CARM is built around actually doing the research and then taking it back to the professionals we study, and engaging with that audience has been not just kind of, okay, it's a nice thing to do, and it's kind of, important these days with impact, but it also informs the way I think we think about research. So in my case, studying interactions in terms of, so what are the opportunities, what are these challenges, how can we identify them, and it's engaging with people for whom it matters. I mean, it gives so much back to research and for the reasons for doing research, this kind of research, so it's been very rewarding. In that sense. So, yeah.
So how did you find it to work with these professionals, people who do not know any or much CA?
Yeah, it's a challenge. It can be a challenge, but it's also it's not not as difficult as it sounds, maybe, because we are dealing with conversations, we study conversations, things that are quite accessible actually to everyone. I mean, that's also a challenge, but the advantage is that you don't have to explain the basis for it. They understand what they hear if they're native speakers and so on. I mean, the challenge is people's preconceptions about what language is. They come with lots of baggage. They've been trained in a certain way. They've heard this and that. But we develop ways of working around that, basically preempting it in our workshop designs, and actually making them see that this is based on empirical research. This is empirical research, and be quite strong about that. Be quite strong about that, and show them this is what we found, and this is why it's important. And no one has really studied these settings before. That's why it's important, and people get it. And they always engage. I mean, whatever the workshop is, they always engage. They always like having to see what people actually do. So I'm doing this because the line by line, what happens turn by turn, to actually see what happens in real life, what people like them do, instead of having someone put up a theoretical framework like a staircase or some kind of model where it's conveyed terms which you struggle to see what is the relevance for me. So they always engage with that. So the format itself is something they engage with. But on the other hand, so I said being quite firm on the empiricalness is important, but also being quite humble, because what you don't want to do is to come there and say, well, I've done research. You might have done this job for 20 years, but I've done the research. I'm a conversation analyst. I know this. You don't want to be there because that will lead to resistance, and also it doesn't make sense. I mean, these individuals have done their job and they know what to do at one level. Our job is to find out exactly what that is, because, professionals don't know exactly what they do their works well or less well. So that's kind of formulating our work as in that framework. And also the advantage of being someone who's an outsider. So I'm not actually, I don't know what it's like to be a crisis negotiator. I'm an outsider. I've been able to look at your work in relation to other settings that we've studied, and that can also be used as an advantage. And people get that.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, telling them that we want to show you all the amazing work you do, show you why you're so good at what you're doing,
mm-hmm.
and sometimes why you're less good.
Mm-hmm. So you already mentioned that CARM looked at kind of police negotiators, talking to people in crisis, people threatening to commit suicide. Can you give us an overview of some of the other settings that you've worked with?
So one of the early settings we worked on was GP receptions, so general practice, where patients are phoning in to book an appointment to see a doctor often, or have a repeat prescription. And so these are kind of service-oriented phone calls, which has a very clear agenda from the caller's point of view. And it started from the general practice manager being interested in, so is there something we can do, that heard about our work, and is there something we can do to make these conversations go quicker? Is there something that the receptionists could do better? And we quite quickly found things that the receptionists could do differently, and which has informed our workshops. We've done workshops for GP receptionists. We've also, the place where this thing started with Lis Stokoe, looking at mediation, that has just continued, and we've been looking at family mediation settings. And it's kind of, the umbrella has grown, and there's been projects on veterinary practices, window sales, so different service encounters, and we've involved other people to work with us on those projects as well.
All right. So now the main chapter of the sort of CARM involvement that you have will come to a close to some extent, as you're moving on to a new job.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
Yeah, so do you want to talk a bit about that?
Yeah, I've got a job in Trondheim, where I came from 12 years ago, Norwegian University of Science and Technology. It's an associate professor job in applied linguistics, so it's a job tied to a master program in speech therapy. and it's also tied to Research Center for Professional Communication. And I'm really excited because it brings together my expertise, my phonetics, the phoneticians there, the professional communication bit. I can build on my CARM experience, and then also, well, the slightly new bit, speech therapy, where I can also use all those skills to, well, look into interventions in speech therapy, implementations of those, and yeah, speech-related stuff in native interaction.
But this is not the first time you're kind of contributing towards the development of CA in Norway, because you've been working for a while with a group of CA researchers on a different project.
Yeah, so that's a project on teacher education in the University of Southeast Norway, colleagues there, and where we look at how teachers engage with students, the group work students in the classroom, and also in oral exams, so kind of two settings related to what teachers do, the training that teachers get. So, but it works in a kind of CARM-like way. We identify trainables and we implement those as an intervention, where we train teacher students. So we're in that process now. We've identified trainables and we're piloting the intervention. So it's a very exciting project, which will proceed till 2021. And yeah, I suppose.
So besides all the projects that you mentioned, are there other things that you're working on at the moment? I bet there are.
Yeah, well, with the CAiTE project, so the teacher education project, I've kind of returned to interested in the response tokens and how those are used as part of the evaluation in teaching. And it's a small thing, but it's a big thing. It happens all the time. Teachers do it all the time, and they shape their responses. Their third turn responses are following a question and an answer. They do those kind of very projective of, okay, how far have we got along to the right answer, and how far are we, and the students and teachers observably orient to those prosodic features when they build that evaluation cycle, because it's not just a right or wrong answer, it's built sequentially. That how do we get where we wanted in the first place? So that's something I'm working on, the precise prosodic features of those evaluation cycles. Yeah.
So if you kind of reflect back to your exploration of CA, many conversation analysts have a moment, whether it's reading a paper or listening to a presentation, a specific moment in their sort of CA careers that they say, yeah, this has inspired me. This is a moment I'm going to think back to. Do you have such a moment? Or?
So yeah, I do have, and this getting back to York again, when I started really digging into the literature, and I have to say the first researcher author that really grabbed me was Gail Jefferson and her work, because I was really amazed at how she could pick out something so tiny, like a response token, and look at it in such complex terms, which was really looking at really complex sequences. And I was also amazed by, so there was that, and I was also amazed by how could she write in that way? And I wouldn't have waited, probably not allowed to write in that way. It's quite, yeah, it's quite hard to track. It's quite bonkers, the style, but I really liked it. And because I've been sitting and looking at speech, spectrograms of speech for about 5 years. I was really into that, observing what does speech look like, what does it sound like, and she was kind of working with the same principle, but I could really see the gaps. I mean, she was working really complex sequences. I had this phonetic skills, and I could really use my skills to do something similar to what she was doing with these response tokens, for example. So that really inspired me. I remember reading her papers and feeling, wow, this is it. This is very exciting. And I think so. When we talk the options, we always have there's options, and options are analytic resources. I think she described that somewhere, and I think that's really important. So how do you get about identifying how people make options, how they're showing what route they're going down with their speech, with their words, with their prosody. And how can we identify that systematically, and how also when we do analysis, what else could have happened here? Is there a particular reason why that didn't happen, and how can we see that? How can we identify that? So I think that really inspired me. Yeah.
So do you have then a favorite paper?
I don't have a favorite paper, but I sometimes go back to the side sequences by Gail Jefferson. So I kind of, yeah.
Okay.
That's a nice paper.
All right. And then, so kind of final question, stepping a little bit outside academia, I was wondering whether you have time for any hobbies or passions or leisure activities.
Yeah, I do quite active with music, so I play the viola.
All right.
I've done that most of my life. I haven't stopped, always brought it with me. It's very important for me. And so also here I live in Nottingham. I've played in various orchestras, chamber groups, symphony orchestra, string quartets, and a pop band as well. And and yeah, it's been an important part of my life to have that.
Are you're gonna continue that in Trondheim?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, Robert, figure out who to play with, how to do music. So yeah.
All right. Thank you very much for a wonderful interview.
Thank you very much. Enjoyed it. Thank you.